back, everybody. As you may have guessed from the thumbnail, we are adding LED strips into our engine bay to try to make it look more pretty at night. It's one of the biggest issues I have, you know. Go to little car meets, you pop your hood, you're not in a good spot. No one really cares if there's an LS in there, you know? So, you know, that's what we're doing today. The system I got is actually it is 12 volt, but it also has a connector so you plug it into the wall. See? Just like that. Here's your plug if you wanted to swap over. The real cool thing about this though is that these are RGB. So red, green, blue, all that good stuff. And because of the little remote, you know, cheapo Chinese one, of course. Alright, this is going to be a really bad example, but this is kind of what I'm going for. I kind of wanted just to highlight all the stuff. So yeah, we're definitely going to build some frames to kind of keep this nice and taut. So we're going to go ahead and pull off this little gasket right here because that's where we're planning on putting some of the LEDs instead of actually mounting to the hood, because we have a little bit of freedom there. These take two little bolts, one on each corner. They are a 7mm socket. Take that off. So we went out to our local Home Depot and bought some materials. We bought 4 pieces of 1/2-inch flat bar, 1 piece of angle aluminum. We got rivets, screws, extra wiring, and an extra bit for whatever we need. So I'll be using the flat bar basically to remold the hood, like kind of like this, but like go with the curve a little bit better maybe. I gotta see how this lays out first. So we cut a piece of that angle, we're trying to make this flat right here, just like that. And you can use whatever, it doesn't really matter, obviously, but I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Okay, take a half piece like this, essentially what you did is double it, right? For example, I did this one over here already. Focus. Alright, so essentially we basically stacked it up to 3 layers. So this is what we're looking at right here, basically. Now, what we're gonna do is actually gonna rivet these two, and we're gonna leave the screws there. So when it comes time to take this off, whenever we want to take this off, we'll just have to figure out how to get the rivets out from the center, but I don't think that'll be too big of an issue. The ends will be off, so let's say we can't do it, we can just peel it off, which is kind of what I wanted to avoid, but in this instance, we can't really do much about the mounting portion of it. Because see, I just want this to show a certain angle, you know, I want it to point in that direction, if that makes any sense. So the top one's done, so we'll go ahead and start working on the other ones. Alright, there's our first bar. Looks like we got a couple of bends, unfortunately, but we'll add, when we finish it up with the rivets, we'll add more rivets, I guess. Fuck it. So this is where we're at with the 3 braces, or the 3 strips. I know you're probably thinking right now at this point in the video like, hey, this kind of looks ugly. Could not agree with you more. So we're actually going to end up painting these All right, so here's how we're gonna handle painting. Just pretty simple. We're gonna take some 180 grit, which is pretty abrasive, and we're gonna really clean these up and then clean up with some thinner and then simple spray paint. All right, we got both sides spray painted. They look pretty nice, even though you won't be able to see any of it. But we'll let all this stuff sit overnight. That way we have some nice dry and slick paint to put the LED strips on. All right, fellas, so we're ready to start the wiring process. We're actually gonna take one of the long ends here, which has the plug already soldered into it, just to save time. It's gonna end up over there, and that is where our control box is gonna be. So we're gonna run the LED strip under the firewall, and then here we're gonna make a disconnect, basically where we can disconnect this LED that's gonna run up to the hood. In case we ever have to take off the hood, you don't have to fool around with a bunch of wires. Okay, but from there, it's gonna just be permanently attached to the hood using the aluminum. It's gonna go up, we're gonna make a jumper, go across, another jumper, and then down. So we'll essentially have a square of LEDs. But first, like I said, we're gonna go ahead and kind of get everything in place and get our wiring together. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to do this one time. That way I don't have to continue to show you each one and the video doesn't become this long, pointless process like some people do out there. All right, so here's our LED strip right here. Now I'm gonna show you up close, as best the camera allows. There we go. You have your 12 volts, you know, you have your G, you have your R, and you have your B. Red, green, and blue, essentially. Green, red, and blue. So on the end we cut it right down the middle, as you can see right there, okay? Super simple stuff here. You take a razor blade and you gently cut down the weatherproofing portion of this, I guess. You gotta make sure you don't cut into the actual ribbon. So you're gonna end up with something like this, right? Okay. So then you just take your soldering equipment. But I am gonna start by, I like to do this if I didn't pre-clean the tip or preserve it by using solder. I always like to clean it off with some sandpaper. Just make sure you get some nice, pretty copper. Nothing too fancy, right? And then here you can just go ahead and even pre-tin it, just like that. See? Easy stuff, easy stuff. All right. So now, you just slightly apply your solder on. We can pre-solder. We're basically just going to pre-solder everything. Oh, I did too right there. And this seems a little daunting to you. It's not that hard, I promise you. I taught myself how to solder. It's really not that hard. Is it perfect every time? No, but my connections never fail, so. It's kind of like welding, I guess. It don't look pretty. Use a grinder, right? Okay, so I'll show you something real quick. Here are my connections. Focus, there we go, okay. Looks like the second one, the G, there's a little bit of solder touching the red. Oh, come on, focus. I gotta clean that up. You know, you kinda wanna keep them separate. So that's real easy, you know, it's just literally sticking it on. That looks good, okay. There we go. So now I got this pre-tin, I can go ahead and I'll do the rest. I'll do these, I'll cut all the ends off and just go ahead and set it up, okay? But for the one we're doing now, I'm gonna show you. Now this is completely the wrong wire to use, but I just grabbed whatever Home Depot had. But it will work. Wire to me is wire. It's thin, It's good wire, it's just different. I didn't find any 4-strand, so we're just gonna use 2-strand, okay? And I've gone ahead and measured. We need about 8 inches. All right. Camera zoom. So here, I just touch the wire. Go ahead and pre-tin it again. Just by doing this, it allows me to coat the wire and solder. Okay, here it is. Trimmed the little nub just enough. Going at it left-handed again. Shit, come on. All right, there we go. All right, there we go. That's a cleaner, more efficient looking joint. You see what I mean? All right, we got all our connections soldered on there. They don't feel like they're gonna go anywhere, which is great. We got a little bit of heat shrink here to cover everything up. Okay. Okay, just like that, we get a really nice weatherproof connection. If you wanted to take it a step above, you could like put hot glue or silicone inside of there, and it really should never move. So that's a really good thing. So that's how you do it. Now, a little bit word to the wise, and the only reason I'm doing this like this is just to show you. What you want to always do is make sure before adding heat shrink to all your connections, I mean, you could slide it in there and everything, but just don't heat treat it until you're able to test every connection. So we know this connection here is good because we've already tested it and it works, but once we make this connection over here, we want to make sure that we soldered it correctly. So I saw how my wires are ran, you know, I tried to keep them straight in here, so it's kind of obvious how they run right now, just like this. So we want to make sure that our connections are good before applying any heat shrink to anything else, you know what I mean? So just keep that in mind, just a little bit of things to keep in mind before you do this. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and set this up to add our first set of wires. All right, so I had to change some things since you guys last saw. I ended up redoing all the wiring simply because that solid copper wire would kind of twist a certain way and it would mess up the LED strips. Now, I'm sure a lot of my smarter viewers thought of that. I didn't. Big fucking deal. I also adjusted this little corner here. I didn't like how much bend there was there, so when I get more chafing gear, I'm going to continue that little piece there, so you can kind of ignore that. But basically, that little piece there will be tucked in. Well, yeah, but aside from that, getting more chafing gear is all I really need. So here's our box. All disconnectable. Oh, that came out too easy. All right, let's see. 1, 2. Oh my God, how cheap is this thing? That's hilarious. All right, now I just gotta figure out which one's positive and which one's negative. Shouldn't be too hard to find out. Okay, so from what I can tell, is that these two connections down here that are soldered would be positive and negative. It looks like this front one here will be the negative, and the back one is the positive. Yeah. Yep. So we're gonna solder it, I guess, onto the bottom here since we have plenty of room in that box. For wire, It may seem ghetto to you guys, but I don't care. We're using some speaker wire because I don't feel like going to the store and buy more wire, which is kind of what the first problem was originally, I guess, but I don't learn from my lessons. So we're gonna go ahead and solder this. Nice and hot. Alright, we're gonna do the negative first, white wire. And positive will be no color, or brown. I'm not judging. I almost messed up again. We did this wiring, we don't even know if it works. You know? I guess I'm so confident that I know it'll work, but for you guys, let's make sure it works, huh? Let's go ahead and strip this off. Woo, it works. Check that out, fellas. Okay. I knew it worked. I knew it worked. I've gone ahead and ran my wire on the back side. I have a ground sitting right here in the back that's pretty commonly used ground. So I'm going to tie into that for my ground. We're going to strip a couple pieces of insulation here, a couple on both ends for this one, one on this end. Okay. So we're going to make our own inline fuse here. One end. And the other one. Slide a heat shrinking over it, heat shrinking tube over it. Okay, snap your fuse into place, like so. Try to get the heat shrink just to sit just right. Heat it up, so lock everything in place. Behind this cover sits a positive terminal. and that's where we're going to attach it, our power to. So same as here, we're going to use another crimp connector. This is not a heat shrinking type, but it's still the same concept. You just slide the wire in, line it up, and crimp. Take a 7mm socket to remove this bolt. Go ahead and unplug our fuse so there's no issue with it. Slide our cap back on. And we can go ahead and insert our fuse right here. Boom! Oh yeah, I left it on. Go ahead and tuck this down out of the way. Alright, and we're done. Take a good look, fellas. This is what it takes to do a quick, easy install on LED lights. Everything's wired in, so you don't have nothing to worry about. It's even fused and protected. When you want to turn it off, you just hit your power button, and you're good. All you gotta do is make sure you leave your antenna at a good location, which I'll have to figure out what's a good spot for that one. But for the most part, yeah, we're looking good, guys. Everything's ready to rock. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Peace.